Hey, did you know I'm doing a toy drive for the kids? That's right. If you want to support underprivileged children this holiday season, click the link below or in my bio, and you'll be able to access our link to our toy drive. We're going through Amazon, so all you need to do is buy toys. You can see we've already got a ton of them. The more the merrier. We are looking for gifts still for the very young kids, as well as gifts for the older kids. Thank you to all who've already bought toys and donated. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, and enjoy the video. Yeah, John, are you ready to substantiate your claim yet? Like, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, substantiate your claim now. I know that you needed time to go and like Google an argument, so now I hope you have that argument. Substantiate it.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I don't need Google. We'll go ahead and go through it. So your question or your argument was that trans men are men, and then you used the analogy of the difference between black men and white men.
I didn't use the analogy. I didn't use the analogy to substantiate my claim. The analogy was to show why the other claim was ridiculous.
Okay. Well, here's another example of that. What's a snake? Okay. What's a king snake and what's a corn snake? They're both snakes, but they have different dichotomies than one another because they are different.
Is this the same John or is this a different John?
This is a different John.
Holy shit. It said you were my apologies. It said you were the same John. So my apologies. It literally said the last call was earlier. Okay, so this is a different John. This is actually hilarious. We have two Johns in a row. John, before we begin, can you just give me your age and pronouns?
Yeah, that's 44,
so
he, him.
That's fucking hilarious. Two Johns in a row. Okay, John is 44 and goes by he, him. Okay. So I apologize for thinking you were the other John.
That's okay.
So John, you don't think trans men and women are men and women, like period. Is that correct?
I do not.
Okay, what is a man?
A man is someone with XY chromosomes that has testicles that produces higher levels of testosterone on average than their female counterpart. That's what a man is.
Does a man have to have all of those things in order to be a man?
Generally speaking, at birth, yes. If a man, now I'm not saying that there's not some medical issue, you know, where one has to be removed, one doesn't fully develop, but the way they develop, all men have XY chromosomes. No men have XX chromosomes.
Incorrect.
None of them. At birth, when you're in the hospital, there's no doctor that's going to say, well, this person has a female anatomy, but it's actually a man. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the animal kingdom. In all mammalian biology, that has never happened across the board. There has never been a conclusive study with any type of animal in the entire animal kingdom that refers to a male animal that has become a woman.
Okay.
So
let me hold on. First of all, no animals would be women. Second of all, there are animals that go from male to female. Seahorses, for example, do go from male to female. Third, there are males with XX chromosomes. It's specifically called XX male syndrome. There are males who have XX chromosomes because the SRY gene activates on the X chromosome instead of the Y chromosome. Thus, they receive male development. So all of those things are incorrect. But the main thing I want to point to you here is you're claiming trans men and women cannot be men and women, which means you are making a category. You're making a category distinction. Okay.
Yes.
Now, I'm totally fine with the fact that you're making a category distinction. I didn't record any of this conversation. It's okay. I can get the video back later. I'm totally fine with you making a category distinction and saying that there's a category here, man and woman, that some people do not fit into. But this means okay, that you have to have a necessary condition for that category. There must be something required to be in that category. And if you're telling me that, hey, there really isn't anything because there could be variances, then trans people would just be people with variances who can fit into the category, like other people with variances that fit into the category. Unless you have some
That's
sort
correct.
of necessary. Okay, that's correct. Okay, then trans men and women would be men and women.
I'm not arguing that point that there's not some variance. I'm not arguing the point that there's not hermaphrodites or there's.
Well, so that's not a term used medically for humans, just FYI. We don't use that term medically for humans anymore.
In the animal kingdom. And as far as seahorses are concerned, they are born with both sexual reproductive or with both organs. So they don't switch. They just, it's like one becomes stronger over a period of growth. So it's not like they don't have that and then they become that. They have both, and it's the same in some amphibians where they have both female and male reproductive organs so they can create their own offspring in those cases. But that's very specific, and that doesn't happen in mammalian biology. It may happen in fish in certain situations. It may happen in amphibians in certain situations, and I don't believe it happens ever with reptiles. But it definitely does not happen with mammals.
So John, hold on. The thing I want to boil down here. Okay, the thing I want to boil down here. You've already admitted to me that there can be people with variances who fit into the category. Why are trans people not considered people with variances that fit into the category?
They can fit into a category. The problem with the trans community is that there is this severe rhetoric that goes against everybody who's straight, white, straight, female, that it feels like we have to be locked into this ideology in order to conform to their existence.
You recognize there's tons of straight, white, trans people, right? Like there's a bunch of straight white trans people.
Maybe so, but they're not on TV or on the internet making a scene, shooting people and mass shootings. That kind of stuff
trans people aren't committing mass shootings. Like there's no statistical significance of trans people. No, they're not.
They've done it in more than 8 states. So
wait. How many mass shootings in 20? Well, give me a time frame. You want to go 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Go 10 years. Yeah.
Okay.
10 years.
So between 2015 and 2025, how many mass shootings have been committed by trans people?
I don't know the exact number, but I know it's happened in multiple states. I saw a documentary that talked about it and went through the specificity of it. I don't know all their names. I'm not that well versed on that information, but I do know that it's happened, and I know if I got on Google right now, I could find it.
Okay. Do you want the answer?
I mean, you can tell me your answer.
It's like 7.
Well, that's still a lot for such a small minority.
In 10 years? No. We're not looking at them. Hold on. See, this is the problem. When we do these sort of things, people like to say, but look at the amount of trans people versus the amount of shooters. That's not how you come up with numbers like these. You would look at the amount of shootings.
You come off of the total.
No,
and
you would look
at
the statistical evaluation would be to look at the number of shootings and then the rate of people committing those shootings, not at the number of people in a group and then the rate of people in that group doing X, Y, or Z. That's not how you would come up with this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do.
So when we look at the number, so how many mass shootings were there between 2015 and 2025?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact number is, but I know mass shootings are definitely within the thousands over that 10-year period nationally. I understand that. But when you look at the entire populace and then you look at the trans community and the percentage of that community that makes up the entire populace, which would be personified to that entire number of mass shootings, how many of them in that small subjective group have committed that crime, even though there's such a low number of people within that group?
So first of all, John. So first of all, we're on a tangent that doesn't even have anything to do with the main claim you made, but we've moved on to this for some reason. First of all, of the 6,000 roughly estimated mass shootings in the last 10 years, trans people have committed 7. This isn't
I'll have
statistical
to look into
significance
that.
in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't indicate violence amongst a group, right? Now, if we want to look at like other factors, we can ask how many of those mass shootings were like white men. But it doesn't, it's also not going to signify violence amongst a group.
How many of them were white liberal men?
A far less portion of it than were white conservative men.
Conservative? No, I don't think so. I don't think that's true at all.
Okay.
I think that it's more predominant in the black community. I know that because I'm from New Orleans originally, and I've been in that type of community where there's high levels of crime, there's tons of murders. I've seen exactly what statistically it is like.
John. Violence is going to be higher in areas of poverty. This is the case. This is always the case. Black people have been systemically pushed into areas of poverty for hundreds of years.
Okay.
So it makes total sense that there's a higher rate of violence amongst a group that are living in poverty.
That's because of culture and bad decisions.
It's not because of culture. There's no difference in the violence in black culture versus the violence in white culture. It doesn't exist.
Okay. Do you know who in the female representation of college graduates and minorities that have been immigrants, who graduates more often?
You tell me, John.
Black women.
Okay.
Now, that could be from Nigeria, from Haiti, from a bunch of different African countries.
What does this have to do with what we're currently talking about?
Well, my point. Well, you're using this as a scapegoat to why black communities are causing more violent crime in these impoverished areas.
John, black communities commit the crime is higher within black areas because the poverty rates are higher within those areas.
Okay, I agree.
Poverty is a direct causation to crime. Like a direct cause. There's a direct causal line between poverty and crime.
You're right. You're right. I lived in poverty-stricken areas in New Orleans, but I just went to work at a young age. I quit fucking up. I quit ruining my life. I did drugs. I partied. I was a DJ. I used to spin at the State Palace in downtown New Orleans. Like, I've been through that whole
survivorship bias, John.
I've been shot at. I almost got stabbed with an ice pick one night buying drugs by four black dudes.
John, this is survivorship bias. Do you know what survivorship bias is?
But no. Okay. I see what you're saying. But I can understand what you're saying about survivorship bias. But the point is, at an individual level, if you decide at any point that being in this situation is less beneficial to you and step away from it, your life will improve. If you don't go hang out with scumbags, you go to work every single day. You stay focused.
You acknowledge. You acknowledge to me that you were doing.
Around you with respect,
John,
and I can promise you that anybody can do well if they just stay consistent.
John, you admitted to me that you knew you were doing survivorship bias, and then you just continued to do survivorship bias.
Well, I'm trying to make a general point that anybody can get out of any situation they're in.
Wait, it has nothing to do, John, it doesn't have to do with whether people can get out of a situation. It has to do with the fact that somebody starting from a place where their people are systemically oppressed have a harder time doing this than people whose people are not systemically oppressed. When you have a group of people who on average have a lower familial wealth, who on average are pulled over more for traffic stops, who on average have a higher maternal mortality rate, who on average have lower incomes. When you do all of these things, it's going to be harder for someone to pull themselves out of that. And we can't sit here and ignore societal factors when humans are fucking social creatures. Our societies and environment shape us constantly. That's why we know that somebody who's around alcohol has a higher propensity to become an alcoholic, right? Because it's a mixture of
true.
your environment and your genetics. But we know that, like, if your parents are alcoholics and you grow up watching alcoholics every day, you have a higher chance of being an alcoholic. So when someone's born into poverty and they're around violence and they're around these sort of things all day, they have a higher propensity to get caught up in these things. And we continue to underfund schools, to underfund community programs. We continue to give the middle finger to black people in this country in like every single aspect of life, and then expect them to succeed. The way I like to describe it is, imagine me and you, John, sat down and played Mario Kart. And I went around the track 2 times completely before you even got to move. Yeah. And then you get to move while I'm on my 3rd lap, and I have a blue shell and you have a banana peel. You could theoretically still win. You could still beat me in that race. It's not going to be very easy, is it?
I think that's a bad analogy. And you're right. Yeah, I do agree that culturally, when you're in a place like that, that it is harder. I'm not denying that, because I grew up in that place. I grew up in poverty. I've been in all those same situations. So I can empathize with people that have been there. But I knew in myself, I got to a point to where I was at my bottom. And when I got to my bottom and felt like I didn't have other people to lean on that were productive for my future, I got away from them. It took time. And it seemed like for 10 years, I fucking worked my ass off and nobody would give me a chance. People ripped me off at work. I didn't steal. I was doing drugs sparingly by myself. But I wasn't fucking people over. I wasn't causing problems in other people's lives. I didn't live with this malicious propensity to just be shitty every time I had a chance to take advantage. I just wanted to be honest, structured, and stay to the game. And that's what I did. Are you gone?
John, you are still engaging in survivorship bias.
But why can't other people do that are born in that same situation?
Because you don't know what else those people are. You don't know what those people are dealing with. I'm not Here's the thing. I think a lot of people think that when I have these conversations, I'm discounting the fact that, like, oh, hey, there is some level of personal responsibility. And I believe, and I agree that, like, there is a level of personal responsibility in the things you do, but we cannot deny the systemic factors at play. Right? It's real easy for people to go, well, look at all the single mother homes in the black community, without also looking at the fact that black communities are over policed. Their men are thrown into jail at much higher rates than white communities. And the fact that the CIA literally did a concerted effort to throw black men in prison for drug charges a lot longer than they threw white men in prison for. So yeah, you can say, hey, hey, look, these people should be more responsible and not be getting into relationships and having baby daddies, blah, blah, blah. But then we ignore the large societal impacts that have affected the single parent household in the black community. We're looking at, when you only look at personal responsibility, you look at half of the story. And we can't look at half of the story when we're trying. If all factors were even, like if all factors were even in terms of wealth, income, the criminal justice system, education, healthcare, if all those factors were even, and then we still saw high rates in the black community of all these things, I might agree with you that, hey, there seems to be an issue in the black community and we need to figure what's going on. But we've seen in the past, when black people have started to build that wealth, that these issues disappear. And what happened every time that happened? Okay. White people came in and burnt our cities to the ground to build a park.
There's a guy who owns some bars. He's from Costa Rica. He's a black guy. He lives in New Orleans. He owns like 17 pieces of property in the 7th Ward, and he owns 2 bars and a convenience store. And I did some work for him. He was my next door neighbor. I lived across the street from him. He had the only nice house in the whole neighborhood, okay? And a bar that was racking in money. I mean, it was full 7 days a week. It was full. And he told me, this is coming from his mouth, in the 1980s, there is a subdivision, a big subdivision in New Orleans East. And I went there one day to go look at some work to do on the house because the last tenants had moved out. He told me, he said, in the 80s, there were 2 black families in this place. He said it was beautiful. He said now he would use the N-word derogatorily all the time, in front of black people, in front of me, in front of everybody. And I never agreed with him, but I understood his point of reference. He told me, he said, since the black people took over this neighborhood, you see how it is now. There's piles of trash on the curb everywhere. On every street, there's like, if somebody throws a couch out, they just throw it across the easement into the ditch. Like, they don't bring it anywhere. They don't put it in one specific pile. Now, that's not, to me, that's not a white person's fault. That's personal responsibility. And in the same way, what you're saying is that there are some systemic issues. I felt like people have done that to me. I've definitely been in the black community where I was ostracized because I was the white guy and hanging out with a bunch of black dudes. That's happened to me numerous times. And I feel like just the tribalism of individual groups, whether it be by race, it be by style, or it be by culture, if you're an outsider, you're going to be treated slightly different than other people. But I've had that same systemic feeling across the board, from white people, from black people, from Spanish people, and from Asian people.
John, none of that addresses any of the things I said. Again, when we see income and wealth, even when we see the wealth gap even out, all the things you're talking about start to go away.
Well, of course, people are happier when they have more money.
So you recognize that the issue is systemic poverty. It's not with black people or black culture.
Well, my point is, why is it not so prevalent with white poor people in white culture?
It is, but there's more. But there's a more dilution of white people across the class gaps, right? Middle and upper class. There's a more dilution of white people across those, so you get a more spread out average of numbers.
Well, of course, but if you put statistically who is less employed, who's getting in more trouble, even if you take it by the actual numbers, not the statistic of the total, the numbers are much higher in the black community. And here's another point against
if we're
that.
taking just numbers, John, if we're not looking at the rates and we're just taking like the numbers, not looking at analyzing them by population, it's white people. White people commit the bulk of everything. Like, if we're looking at just crime, like if we go to table, this we talked about in a previous call, but if you go to table 43 and you're just looking at crime stats by number of crime committed, white people outrank black people on
67% white and 13% black.
That's why we have to look at the population rates. But again, what I'm saying is there's more white people in based on population, there's more white people in the middle and upper class systems. So that way you're going to have a lot less rates of white people doing these things, because poverty is the linchpin key that we're missing here.
Yeah. And what about what if I were to use the example of what happens in the Spanish community? Because Spanish people never have a problem getting a job. They pick the jobs that they want, so it's not like most Spanish people are white. In the upper echelon of, Spanish people are white.
Yes,
they're brown. They're not white.
They're white.
Yeah, that's not white.
Brown is not a race. Brown is not a race.
Well, brown is a race.
And we know brown is not a race. Brown is not a race.
Well, I think that's a little unfair. It's not.
Unreasonable. There's no race. It's not black, brown, white.
There only two?
We have a specific. In fact, there's so much more white, Spanish, and Latino people that we literally have a word for the black one, and so they call them Afro-Latina, because they have a specific phrase for the Latino community that are black, and they're separated from the Latino community that are not.
Yeah, but when you're filling out a consensus form, you don't. If you're Latina, you don't put white. You put Latina.
Hispanic is under ethnicity, not under race.
Yeah. Okay. Well, ethnicity. Well, I mean, okay. Okay, so now we're breaking down the fundamentals of in between the specificity of race. So
ethnicity
there's
and race
only
means
black
different
and white,
things.
is what you're saying.
There are five races. There are five races recognized legally in the United States. It's white, black, or African American, American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, and then Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. Those are the five racial categories in the U.S.
And Hispanic.
No, Hispanic is a ethnicity. Hispanic and Latino are considered ethnicities.
Okay, well, either way, from a cultural point of view, you can see that Spanish people don't necessarily resonate with white people. If that were the case, then the president wouldn't be in office and immigration wouldn't be shut down. So there's a clear distinction to many white people, the difference between Spanish people and white people, because people in America are predominantly white and they feel like that immigration is taking over. It's costing the taxpayer too much money, and there's an influx of people that shouldn't be here. Well, I've experienced it. I lived in South Florida. I couldn't find, in 2022, I couldn't find a room for rent for less than $1,600. And that's with no kitchen, no kitchen, no anything else other than a bathroom and a microwave. That was my last apartment, and I paid $1,600. And I went 2 months without finding an apartment, looking for one, because
it's not because of immigrants.
Prices were so unbelievable. Well, you could go to entire sections of Palm Beach County, and it's nothing but Spanish people. It's all the low-end rental housing.
That's not why the rental prices are rising. We typically tend to see higher rental prices in larger populated areas.
Look, no, my point is the influx of immigrants takes away from Americans.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't matter if that's what's spiking. Well,
no,
of course it does, because it did in my particular situation.
No, it didn't. You couldn't find, there were houses available. You just couldn't afford them. That's a different conversation. And the reason you couldn't afford them is because people who own those properties skyrocket the rent. I guarantee you.
Supply and demand.
No, I guarantee you if you look at I promise you, if you look at the raise in rent increases versus the amount of rental acquisitions of like property that's being rented out, you're going to see a disparity in those numbers. I can all but guarantee it.
Yeah, I think
landlords always increase prices whether or not they have ample supply or not. That what happens is landlords will increase prices up until people stop renting, and then they'll slowly start to pull those prices back.
Yeah, but if you live in, let's say, the mountains of North Carolina or the coast of South Florida, the rent is
because there's less people.
More expensive in South Florida.
Because there's less people, and it's a less desirable place to live.
Exactly. That's what I just said.
Do you think if we get rid of immigrants out of South Florida, there's still not going to be a lot of fucking people? People move to Florida all the time.
I'm in North Florida now. And I got a $10 raise working a job for 6 months. I got a $10 raise almost a month ago.
What does that have to do with immigrants?
I know that's because we're flooded with work because there's no immigrants here. I was making less in South Florida than I'm making in North Florida, even though the economy is way higher in South Florida, and the average pay is way higher, and I'm making $10 more an hour here than I was making there. Make sense. It's
John,
because of the influx of workers. There's so much labor available that they can down the price because there's plenty of people to fill the slot.
John, I promise you're going to be unable to provide that causal line. You're not going to be able to show a causality here.
Specifically on a website?
No, I just mean you're not going to be able to actually show the cause here. Why, but you keep claiming it's why, but you'd have to actually be able to substantiate that with some hard data.
You're right. And I don't have data to substantiate it. I can only tell you my own personal lived experience. And I've been here long enough that the experience didn't change until this changed. So if it has nothing to do with the demographic of people, then I don't know what it has to do with.
It could be a million things, John. You live in a new area. You're working a new job. You've said there were so many. So how can you possibly attribute the change to one thing? You're in a new area. You have a new job. You're working with new people. Like, you can't attribute that. You'd have to.
I think I can attribute it. Because it has multiple factors that would affect it.
That means
And
you
if those
can't
multiple
attribute it to one
factors no
thing.
longer exist, I'm saying multiple factors within the immigration issue. Multiple factors within the immigration issue. If there's less people looking for jobs, they need workers more often. They need people to do different types of jobs because there's not the influx of people to do them. So just in those two cases, my skill set is more pronounced because I get to do these other things because the opportunity is there. Now you could say that doesn't exist, it has nothing to do with that, but I have the lived experience, and these are multiple reasons why, just because of this one thing that has been effectual. And for me, it has been effectual. And there's nothing else that has happened post this administration that has changed that.
John, your lived experience can only provide you a partial view of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It can't provide you the whole view, so you can't attribute.
You're right.
All of these changes in your life to immigrants, into like immigration being changed or any of that, because you only have a limited view of the situation. You only have your limited view.
That's true. That's
but
true.
Then you keep doing it. But then you keep doing it, John.
I still think it has a substantial effect. I'm not saying there aren't other factors involved. I'm saying that it has a substantial effect. It also has a substantial effect on the rental housing market. I also think it has a substantial effect of the ability to find jobs within my realm of job searching. So I think there are multiple big factors that would affect what I'm making, the economical balance in the area that I'm in, how it affects my industry. I think there are multiple factors that are propelling me forward in a positive way without the influx of immigrants.
Okay, well, John,
you may disagree, but that's how I feel.
I disagree because you don't have the data to back that up. But we've been talking for almost 30 minutes. So I'm going to move on to the next person.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you all for watching this video. If you don't know me, I'm Jovan Bradley. I'm a leftist content creator who does debates, political commentary, gaming, and more. If this is your first video, thanks for sticking to the end, and I hope you subscribe. I post videos daily, and there are hundreds of past debates on my page for you to enjoy. Thank you to all my YouTube members. Your continued support helps me create as much as I can. Consider joining. A membership starts at $2.99 and gets you access to our community Discord, early access to videos, and more. Shout out to my Tier 4 members, Red Fairy DF, Ellie McReady, Not 3.6R, Sylvia Snow, Paul D, Zurith Moonpaw, Kazim, Never Again, Bamji, Emery Imogene, Ayla Ursus, Call Me Vel, Kelsey K, Jake Gorshander, Matthew Holloway, Vampy, Yemye, Mealy, and Dragon Nerd. Your continued support goes a long way in helping me continue the fight for equity, justice, and education. Thank you again for watching.